My daughter Lily had always been a dreamer. Even as a little girl, she'd spend hours sketching elaborate wedding gowns, her eyes bright with imagined happiness. So when she called, her voice trembling with excitement, to tell me about David's proposal, my heart soared. Tears welled up, blurring the image of the engagement ring on her finger as she held it up to the phone camera. It was a beautiful ring, delicate and sparkling, a symbol of her future happiness. "He loves you so much," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. In that moment, all I could feel was pure, unadulterated joy for my daughter and the life she was about to build with the man she loved. We talked for hours, planning the engagement party, brainstorming guest lists, and reminiscing about Lily's childhood dreams of her wedding day. She envisioned a small, intimate gathering, a celebration of love, family, and commitment. It was a vision that resonated deeply with me, a reflection of the values we held dear. As we hung up, I felt an overwhelming sense of anticipation and a mother's pride. My little girl was all grown up, ready to embark on the next chapter of her life, and I couldn't have been happier for her. The initial excitement of Lily's engagement began to give way to a nagging sense of unease as the weeks passed. Her calls became less frequent, her tone increasingly clipped when we did speak. Gone were the shared dreams and laughter as we pored over bridal magazines and wedding websites. In their place were vague pronouncements about grand venues and designer dresses. When I gently inquired about these changes, Lily would brush aside my concerns, assuring me that everything was fine, that I shouldn't worry. But mothers have an uncanny intuition when it comes to their children. I sensed a shift in Lily, a distance that had settled between us like a thick fog. The wedding she now described bore little resemblance to the intimate gathering we had initially discussed. It was as if her dreams had been hijacked, replaced by a Pinterest-perfect extravaganza that felt strangely impersonal and overwhelming. I tried to understand. Lily and David were young, starting their lives together. It was natural for them to want a beautiful wedding, a celebration that reflected their hopes and aspirations for the future. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The scale of their plans seemed excessive, especially given their financial situation. I knew that David was a hard worker, but he was still building his career. The thought of them starting their married life, burdened with debt, weighed heavily on my mind. One evening, I broached the subject with Lily as gently as I could. I expressed my concerns about the cost of the wedding, reminding her that love and commitment were far more important than a lavish ceremony. I suggested that perhaps they could scale back on some of the more extravagant elements, that their happiness wouldn't be diminished by a smaller, more intimate affair. To my surprise, Lily became defensive, her voice rising in anger. "It's my wedding, Mom," she snapped, "and I'll have it the way I want it." The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. Lily's voice was tight, strained with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "We finalized the guest list," she said, her words rushed as if she couldn't get them out fast enough. "We've had to make some tough choices." My heart sank. I knew in that instant what was coming. "Mom," she continued, her voice barely a whisper, "you're not on the list." The words hung in the air, sharp and cold, like shards of ice piercing my heart. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. All I could hear was the deafening silence on the other end of the line. Lily, my daughter, the little girl I had cradled in my arms, whose first steps I had celebrated, whose triumphs and heartbreaks I had shared, was excluding me from her wedding day. It was a rejection so profound, so unexpected, that it sent shockwaves through my entire being. In the days that followed, I tried to make sense of Lily's decision. I replayed our conversations in my mind, searching for clues, for any indication that our relationship had fractured so irrevocably. I racked my brain, trying to recall a hurtful word, a careless action, anything that could explain the depth of her rejection. But the more I searched, the more I realized that this wasn't about me. It was about Lily, about the choices she was making, about the life she was building, a life that seemingly no longer included me. I reached out to Lily, desperate to understand, to bridge the chasm that had opened up between us. But my calls went unanswered, my texts left unread, It was as if I no longer existed, erased from her life as easily as my name had been struck from her wedding guest list. The pain of her silence was almost unbearable, a constant ache in my chest that intensified with each passing day. As the date of Lily's wedding drew closer, I found myself wrestling with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Hurt and anger warred with a mother's unconditional love. I was furious with Lily for her callous disregard for my feelings, for the way she had so easily discarded me from her life. Yet, beneath the anger, a deeper pain simmered. The pain of a mother who would move heaven and earth for her child, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. I understood that weddings were a time for celebration, for new beginnings. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Lily was making a grave mistake, one that could have lasting consequences for her future. The extravagance of her plans, the disregard for financial responsibility, the exclusion of family, it all pointed to a disturbing lack of judgment, a disconnect from the values I had tried to instill in her. In the end, I chose to respect Lily's decision, however painful it was. I knew that confronting her, trying to force my way into her wedding, would only serve to further alienate her. So I did the only thing I could do. I sent her a card expressing my love and support, wishing her and David a lifetime of happiness. I enclosed a check, a small token of my love, hoping it would help ease their financial burden. I spent the day of Lily's wedding alone, my heart heavy with a mixture of sadness and a mother's unwavering love. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made for my daughter, all the dreams I had deferred so that she could pursue hers. And I realized that my love for her wasn't contingent on a wedding invitation. It was a love that ran deeper than any social obligation. A love that would endure long after the wedding cake had been eaten and the last champagne flute had been emptied. The silence from Lily continued in the months that followed her wedding. There were no phone calls, no thank you notes, no acknowledgement of the gift I had sent. It was as if a wall had been erected between us, a wall built of silence and resentment. I tried to move on, to focus on my own life, but the pain of Lily's rejection lingered, a constant shadow in the background. Sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet, I would take out the photo album. There, nestled among the faded pictures of birthday parties and school plays, was a picture of Lily as a little girl, dressed in a makeshift bridal veil, her eyes shining with joy. It was a bittersweet reminder of the bond we once shared, a bond that now felt irrevocably broken. Healing, I've learned, is a slow and arduous process. It comes in fits and starts, with setbacks and moments of unexpected grace. It took time, but the raw edges of my hurt eventually softened, replaced by a quiet sadness. I came to realize that forgiveness wasn't about condoning Lily's actions, but about releasing myself from the grip of anger and resentment. One day, almost a year after the wedding, I received a phone call. It was Lily. Her voice, when she spoke, was hesitant, filled with a vulnerability I hadn't heard in a long time. She apologized for her silence, for the pain she had caused. She admitted that she had been so caught up in the whirlwind of planning her perfect wedding that she had lost sight of what truly mattered: family, love, and respect. Lily's apology didn't erase the hurt of the past, but it marked the beginning of a fragile reconciliation. Our relationship would never be the same, but we were both committed to rebuilding trust, to bridging the gap that had separated us. In the years since, I've come to understand that love, especially a parent's love, is a powerful force. It can withstand the harshest storms, the deepest wounds. It's a love that's unconditional, unwavering, and ultimately forgiving. As I watch Lily navigate the ups and downs of marriage and motherhood, I'm filled with a sense of hope. I know that life is a journey filled with both joy and heartbreak, and I will be there for her every step of the way, offering my love and support, because that's what mothers do. We love fiercely, we forgive readily, and we never ever stop believing in the unbreakable bond we share with our children.